Hi guys, I'm back. I wanted to check in with you because I finished my first 3 squares and I have found out a few things that maybe we all need to adjust to. So in doing this and coming up with this idea, I didn't actually, we're not going off of a pattern, so I didn't know how much yarn it was going to take to do what I set out for us to do. And in doing what I did yesterday, I did 3 squares. So here are my 3 finished squares. See how lovely they are, just single crochet squares. I did 3 of them, but to do 3 of them, I went through 1 whole skein plus a little more, which means in order to do 6, it's gonna take 2.5 skeins. And if you extrapolate that out over 4 colors, it's about 20 skeins. So I think that's a lot to ask of you guys for your first project. I know for me, anytime I had to spend more than $20 on yarn, I kind of freaked out a little bit, especially at the beginning. Now, whatever, I spent $20 on yarn, I need to stop spending money on yarn. But anyway, so here's what I suggest. I think that we should take our chart and just cut it in half and just do 6 squares of each to get started. And what that's gonna take is basically 3 rolls of one color. I had to go through my closet and adjust my colors because I didn't want to go back to the store, so I had to go off of what I had. But you'll see, because I'm posting right here, there's plenty available on Amazon. You can get it like in the next day or 2. So if you're still in that gathering stage or thinking it out stage, good, because that way you can still order your materials and you kind of know how much it's going to take. So it's going to take 3 of one color. I already used 1. 3 of the next color. These are going to be my 4 colors. 3 of the next color. And then I think the last color, we're going to play with color a little bit. I'm actually going to teach you guys how to do stripes and maybe some other stuff. So if you have one that's like a little low, that could be your 4th color, but I actually have extra white. It's not the same yarn, but it'll work. So, and then in addition to all of that, you're gonna need something to put it all together with. So grab a color that you have a lot of or whatever. So this is about 12 skeins of yarn. If you want to order it all at one time, you can, and then that way you can work ahead, or you can just order little bits weekly. Or you can just work off of what you have in your closet and they don't have to be as organized as what I'm doing. If you want all of your squares to be totally different colors, it takes about half of a skein to do 1 square. So in these, and this is the Caron Simply Soft, you can go, this has 315 yards on it. Some of the other ones, like this one, has 370. So you might be able to get 3 squares out of just this. So anyway, so I think that we're going to do that. We're going to bring it down to a smaller, more manageable thing, and it's still a good size throw blanket. So it's like half the size of your bed. So it's it'll be pretty good. But also, in addition to that, I wanted to teach you a couple of things I didn't teach you in the last video. One is how to end your square, and one is how to change yarn. So if you run out of yarn, you get through 1 skein, and then you're like, okay, it's time to start the next skein. I'm halfway through a square. What do I do? I'm going to show you how to do that. And then also, the changing yarn is the same thing that you do to change color. And although changing color is something we're going to play with later, once you learn that skill, then you'll be good to go. I also wanted to show you a little bit about weaving in your ends because I weave my ends in differently than I used to. I used to just kind of have the ends in there and I would just crochet over the top of it and it would just be magically erased, kind of tucked in there. But the problem with that is that once you use it for a while and you wash it and all that, they start to work themselves out and then you've got little pieces of yarn sticking out. So I'm going to show you my new way that I learned how to weave in the ends, so that it doesn't work its way out as much. So that is the short little video I'm going to do for you today. And let me know in the comments what you are thinking and what your colors are going to be, if you've got them picked out yet, and all of that. Keep in mind too that if you have like extra random yarn around, like I said, we're going to play with color probably in the last square. So I grabbed a couple of things that might just sort of tie everything together or maybe add a little variety. And that's what we're going to do probably in the last square. And that'll be it'll be fun because it'll be kind of a free-for-all. You'll be able to take the 3 main stitches that you learned and kind of work them together and make something kind of colorful. And then we'll put it all together. It'll be fun. Okay, so I'm getting this ready just so I'll talk to you while I'm getting this ready, so that I'm going to use this as an example when I show you how to weave in your ends and change your thread and all that stuff. But one suggestion that was made to me, I don't know if you saw in the comments, that my friend TJ and I were talking back and forth about what to do. TJ is a good crocheter. She's a designer, so she does a lot of artsy things, and she is a person who does not like a lot of plain stuff. She likes layers and textures and all that stuff. So one thing that she suggested is that if you don't want to do the 12-inch squares, maybe people could do 6-inch squares or 8-inch squares, and that's okay. If you prefer to do that, that's okay, as long as all of your squares are the same size. And then I can teach you how to put it all together. So the one thing that scares me about having a lot of little squares, so if you're like, I'm going to do 4-inch squares or I'm going to do 3-inch squares, you can do that. But if when we go to put it all together, that to me is one of the most time-consuming parts. And that is the part that I don't want to lose you guys. I don't want you to have like a stack of squares and you're like, this is taking forever. I don't want to put 47,000 squares together. So if we only have 12-inch squares, then it's not as daunting. Let me show you something. I made all these tiny flowers. Aren't they so cute? Tons of them. They're beautiful, right? And my plan was to make a flower blanket out of it. I put this one row of flowers together. It probably took me 4 or 5 hours. It was a lot. I was like, I gotta find a better way to do this. So right now it's sitting in a pile. I will figure it out because these flowers will not go to waste. But right now they're sitting in a pile waiting for me to figure it out. And I don't want that to happen to your blanket. So if you are someone who is advanced like TJ or Holly, or someone who has been crocheting a lot and you're like, I think I wanna do some 12-inch squares and some 6-inch squares and some 4-inch squares or whatever, and make like a mosaic, please go ahead and do that, because I want every single blanket to be a little bit different. But if you are new to crocheting, I kind of want to keep it as simple as possible for you so that it doesn't get frustrating for you. Having said that, my very first blanket that I ever made was probably full of the most complicated stitches ever, because I just like dove right in and YouTube taught me, and and it worked. And the blanket's not perfect. It's not, everything's kind of wonky and everything, but I love it. We still use it all the time. So don't be afraid to try different things. I can help you put it all together, and so can some of our other people that are doing this too. So don't be afraid to experiment. One thing we are gonna do too is that, see all this? This big open space right here is not the way that probably TJ would do her blanket, because she likes to have accoutrements and like layering and texturing and stuff like that. Not to worry, I do have a plan for these. You can just leave them plain if you like. I like things to be kind of simple and plain sometimes, but I can show you some fun ways to dress it up. How cute is that? I didn't mean for that to happen. Anyway, I'm gonna show you some fun ways to dress it up. We're gonna do some top stitching, maybe some stripes across it. That'll happen in the end once you guys feel like you're super comfortable, and then we'll do some other cool stuff as we're putting the blanket together, and that's when your blanket will become very different, individual. Like you can even top stitch like little hearts on here if you want to, or whatever, that'll make it your own. So, and everyone's gonna have different colors and it'll all be cool. So don't be afraid to experiment, but if you are brand new, try and stick with me on the big squares. Or if you want to go down to 8-inch squares or 6-inch squares, totally fine. You'll just need more of them to make a bigger blanket. But yeah, so that's where we're at with that. I am going to move the camera so that you can see my hand angle as I show you how to finish a square. It's going to take like 2 seconds. And then also how to weave in ends. So just a second. Okay, so super easy way to finish your square. So pretend like this is a whole square. This is the top corner. You've just finished your last single crochet. When you get to the end, all you do is you just chain 1, pull this, and then cut like right there, just a couple inches off of there. And basically what you've done is you've created a little slip knot right there. The only place I like to have slip knots is on the corners. I prefer not to have knots at all. So that takes us to changing your yarn. So I'm gonna go back a little bit. I'm gonna show you how to change your yarn. I like to change yarn on the end if you possibly can, but if you are like in the middle and you're like, well, dang, I'm running out, you wanna change it when you have at least like this much left so you can leave like a tail. So let's say you're right here, you wanna change your yarn. I'm gonna use a different color just so that you can see the change, but this is also how you change colors. So keep that in mind for later when we're doing colors. So all you do is you just go in and you act like you're gonna do your single crochet, so you're all set up, and when you get to the part where you pull the next loop through, you're gonna do your new thread, put that on there, and then just pull that through. Pull it kind of tight. And then when you go to do, leave the little tails laying back, because you're gonna come back and you're gonna weave those in later. So then when you go to do the next stitch, you just do it, just keep on going as if nothing happened. See that? So you just go straight into the next one and just go straight across. That is how you do that. I like to change my, if you can, change your yarn at the end. So like if you're gonna, let's say you're gonna change your yarn because you ran out of yarn, or maybe you're changing your yarn because you wanna make a stripe. Go try to get all the way to the end. If you don't have enough yarn to get all the way in, maybe go back a line, but because it's just easier to weave in ends, well, coming from, for me anyway, coming from the end. Okay, so we're on the last one. Pull your yarn through like you're gonna be finishing. Take your other yarn, give it a tail, and then just pull that through. Pull the blue yarn tight, or the first yarn tight, and then just leave those tails on the end. This one will be, you can clip that, or it can be on the end of the yarn. And then chain up, turn, go back the way you came. And it'll be pretty seamless. Like you won't even be able to see. There's like a tiny little thread right there at the end that you can kind of tell, but most of it is pretty seamless. If we end up doing a border around the outside, which is a possibility, those will be covered up anyway, so it won't matter. So there you go. That's how you change color. It's how you change yarn. I wouldn't recommend changing color right now unless you're advanced. If you want to do that while you're doing your single crochets, go ahead. But for new people, I think maybe stick with your solid color just so you can focus on the stitches, getting those perfected. And we will, I promise, we will do color changes when we get to the last square. And what else did I want to teach you? Oh yeah, weaving in ends. So, okay. Then what I would used to do is I would just take the two pieces of old yarn and I would just crochet over the top of it. And then that way you're kind of weaving in your ends as you go. And if it's a tight stitch, like a single crochet, you don't really see that yarn in there. It's pretty hidden. So it works out well. If you're doing a stitch that's a little bit more of an open weave, you will see that yarn in there. So it's not always the best choice, but with these ones, it's fine. The reason I stopped doing that is because this yarn, when it's in, like after you've washed it a few times, it starts to kind of like pull itself out. And then you've got this like yarn that's just like sticking up out of your blanket, which is a little annoying. So, so I changed the way I do it now, and I will show you on this one what you're going to want to do with this. You thread your needle, and then let's see if you can see this on here, but inside there's a row right there, then there's the knots, then there's a row, then there's knots, then there's a row. I go down to the second row, and you just kind of hide your yarn in that row, kind of just like it would be if you were crocheting over the top of it, but I'm going to do it a little differently. See how that's pretty hidden in there? You can't even see that. On both sides, it's pretty hidden. Don't pull it too tight on the sides. You want to keep that nice and loose. And then you're going to go, so that's the second row. Then you're going to go through this knot Oh, I'm on the wrong side to go through the knot. So then you're going to go, you can actually go back over here, go through this knot. Sorry for the confusion. Right there, see how there's a knot on each side? And then you're going to go back the direction that you came, but on the next row down. All the way to the end. Don't pull it too tight, just keep it kind of loose. And then you're going to come back around, go down to the next row, and go back the way you came. And that back and forth motion keeps it from working itself out. So when you're washing it or using it, you're less likely to have the yarn come out of there and poke its little head out. So anyway, so 3 times usually works if you go down and back and down, and then you just clip off the end, and it's like you were never there. See? Totally invisible. There you go. So that's how you weave in the ends, that's how you end off an edge, and that's how you change yarn. I think that's all you need for right now. I've picked the next stitch. I'm pretty excited for the next squares because it's going to have some more texture to it, and we're going to work with a half double crochet, which is a lot of people's favorite stitch because it kind of gives it more bulk and everything. But we're going to work in the front loop and the back loop, so a little advanced but still kind of easy, and it'll give it more texture. It'll have a lot more fun in there. So anyway, let me know how it's going. Send me pictures. So in case you guys were wondering why I had so much yarn just on hand, I'm going to show you. I have a lot of yarn. It's become an addiction. A lot of times people ask me what I want for my birthday or what I want for Christmas, and I'm 50 years old. I don't really want anything, but I always tell people that I want yarn because I know I will use it. So I have a lot. This is my little closet. It's my yarn closet. Don't judge me, it's a mess. And this is my stash of yarn. So that whole thing's full, all of that, all of this. Those are the colors I'm using for my flower blanket, so I'm trying to stay away from using those because I might need them. These, we need to figure out something cool to do with these because I love these things. And all of that. So now you know my shame. So anyway, maybe you too will be like me one day and have a scary closet. But for now, at least I had some on hand. That's good, right?